learning something, how to do things out there in the real world, right? So some of the things I have made changes this term. So again, I've made changes this term. I have just uploaded the business case. I'm sure you guys has had access to the course. You're looking at the course content. Some of it was a little bit confusing, saying we're not really sure where to start or where to go or how to do things, right? And so Capstone, we don't run it like any other course where there's a presentation and then there's some activities. That's not how we do Capstone. Capstone is a little bit different. So we go through a business case and I'll tell you what you need to do. I'll even break it down to you. I'll tell you what you need to do. From a high level perspective, we won't get too like a lot into the details of where you need to click, because that's on you. But I'll tell you from a design point of view, what do you need to do? Okay, so this is how we run the course. And then if something is not clear in the business case or you're not clear regarding your direction, then I can step in as an advisor. Okay, so my role really is an advisor. So that's what I do for Capstone. I said I'm going to make changes to Capstone, and I did. Previously, we ran Capstone in a group. Let me tell you what the experience is from others. This is coming from A+ students who struggle to get A+ in their Capstone. So just to let you know, there's a big issue in Capstone the way we used to run it, because we were running it, we would run Capstone in a group. And so the way I used to do it, the way I used to do it, again, this is just a little bit of history before we get into the content and get to the meat of things, just so you know why we're doing this, the change, why are we making this change. The change that I'm making is totally within the scope of the course. So I'm not going beyond the scope of the course. In fact, I'm making it easier for you guys. Okay, I'm making it easier. Just remember that. I am making it actually easier. And you guys will see this shortly. What I have seen it before, when we did the Capstone, we used to run Capstone in a group. Right now, we're not doing Capstone in a group. It's going to be a solo project. It's going to be a solo project. So here's what happens when we run Capstone in a group. And this is, we're talking about friends. Those are even guys like the way I organize students into groups, I bring in at least one person from in that group who's A+, one person is A, one person is B+, one person, like, so at least I try and balance the groups. I don't keep all A+ students in one group, because they're going to ace the project in like 4 weeks. They're going to finish the capstone and they're going to be gone, right? And then those who are still struggling in the program, they're going to have a tough time trying to pass the course. So I was mixing students together also for learning opportunity. So somebody who's not doing well in the program or struggling in the program, they have the opportunity to learn from their colleagues as well, because like I said, we don't cover something new in here. Okay, this is something you're already exposed to. You already know all that content. What happened though, this created a bit of an issue. We had a rigorous team contract. We were following, like in the team contract, it was quite lengthy because we go through the details. I'm talking about the details. If somebody is late, even for 15 minutes, what's the process? How do you escalate your instructor? And so I was getting into situations where people saying, I don't want to be in that group anymore. I want to leave the group. This created a lot of issues. People who are typically don't do well in the program were struggling in this course. They're saying, I don't even know what to do. I am so lost. So they end up, they take their people in their group for lunch and for dinner. It's like, hey guys, please help me out. And so people were doing the implementation on their behalf. This also defeats the purpose of learning. So there was a lot of issues in that space. Students were fighting together. Every week there was a fight. Every week there was a fight. Every week there was drama going on. Things were getting heated between even people who like knew each other from the start of the program, and they were together all the way to capstone. They were like fighting with each other. I'm like, oh, I thought those guys were buddies. Why are they fighting with each other? It was just so strange. The dynamics was so strange, right? And so I got into situations where I let students pick their own group. I got into situations when I started picking groups just to balance groups out. It all ends up in fights through every week. Okay, I got even to the point. Everybody's okay in the classroom. Everybody's doing the project. I just stepped out to use the washroom and come back. Guess what they were doing when I stepped out just for like a couple of minutes? They were fighting. So it's just it just and fight and escalate to the instructor. So I was constantly getting involved and trying to resolve issues, like resolving interpersonal issues between the groups, right? It was just getting too much. Projects were getting pushed to the last minutes because everybody doesn't want to make compromises. Students didn't want to make compromises. So everything was getting pushed to the last minute. Everybody wants to do things their own way. It was a headache. It was even getting to the point where saying, this is it. This is the last 2 weeks now. If you don't get it done, you're failing. If you want to repeat this, go ahead, repeat it. I don't care. So students were sort of pushing their luck, and it was just getting a bit much. And so one of the other issues also I have noticed is students who typically struggle in the program slip through the cracks because they either you. I've seen students buy stuff for each other. Like it's it was like, oh, what's going on here? It was like it was just getting too much, just so they can help. They can just ask for their teammates to help them out, right? Even though that I do say, yeah, you can help your teammates, just don't drive, like don't hold their keyboard and mouse. You can show them what to do, show them where to click, at least let them learn, right? But what happened is some of the groups, of course, because we had closer to 30 something, 32 students in the classroom, it was getting a little bit tight. And so students moved into another classroom. So I was moving between classrooms back and forth, right? And so I can't necessarily see what everybody's doing. Some people also meet on weekends just so they can help each other out. It was just getting out of hand. So I put a lot of rules. There was a lot of rules. There was a lot of sort of guidelines that they have to follow as well. But again, some students, when it gets really to the last minute and you see somebody, and people cry, by the way, just so you know, yes, they do cry. Yes, there is a lot of crying. Some people are crying because like, oh my God, I'm all the way to the end and I'm failing. Like, what's going on? Because what I do something called a soft review, right? So a soft review saying, hey, this is what your grades is going to look like when we start doing the official review. It's okay, don't worry, Josh. We'll talk about all of that. Don't worry. So people are already. So people were crying, and I say, hey, this is your soft review. Just so you know, you're failing. This is your grade. This is what your grade looks like. You have this much time to fix your issues, right? Before we start the official review date. And so people were crying. You're like, oh my God, I already like spent hours and hours trying to figure this thing out. And so people were crying. And you see somebody else from their groups, like they feel bad for them. Okay, let me show you how to do this. Okay, do this. And again, this is all I'm trying to figure out a way so that people, when they graduate from this program, they're really fulfilling the promise that we make to the industry. So that's my objective. It doesn't matter if you barely pass or you pass. I'm telling you, I don't care. I'm just letting you know, even though the grading system is a little bit tough in here, like very, very tough. You'll see that as well. I want to make sure that we fulfill our promise to the industry, because when the industry contacts me, and they do contact me, okay, because I know a lot of MSPs, right? So I know a lot of the managers there. So they contact me saying, hey, Sammy, what do you think of this person? He applied for us. Can you give us any reference check? What did they do in their program? What did they do? What did they do in their capstone? I can't lie. I have to say the truth, right? If I lie, then they will not contact me again. If they get another applicant, like another graduate who is looking for employment opportunity, they're not going to contact me again saying, oh, Sammy gave us a bad reference. So I have to be truthful with employers, and that is also a conflict for me, right? Because I see students struggling, and I'm trying to do my best so that they also get employment opportunities. And so for that reason, I said, okay, we're not doing a group project anymore. So I'm trying right now. This is the first term that I'm doing this. We're doing a solo project. So it's going to be a solo project. If somebody's saying, how about the size of the project? Is the size of the project going down? The size of the project is going down by almost 30% only. So you're still doing the same load as a 70%, like you're still doing that 70% on your own. Now, if you're asking me, is that easier or harder? I'm telling you right now, it is actually easier because you don't have to manage your group. You don't have to follow up with people. You don't have to chase people around. All the emails, all the escalations to me, I get involved. I still, because it was a tough process, right? So if things get escalated to me more than once, I kick students out of the group. I kick them out. I said, no, you're not allowed to stay with that group anymore. When the student gets kicked out of the group, they automatically lose 40% of their grade. Not 40%, 39% almost. So they lose 39% of their grade, which means the maximum they can get, even if they ace everything, is like 62, right? Did that happen to me? Oh, yes, it did. I kicked somebody out of the group. I told them to go do the project on their own because they were just not cooperating with their team members. And so, again, if you're telling me if I doing solo versus group, solo is a lot easier. You don't have to manage the emotions of your group. You don't have to manage the punctuality of your team members. You don't have to figure out whether they have done the work properly or not. You don't have to worry about all of this. You are in control of your own project. You do things on your own. So for that reason, what I did, I said, okay, this term we are doing solo project. We're not doing a group project. Can you do the solo project on your laptop? Yes, you can. If you have 32 gig on your RAM on your laptop or even on your home computer, yes, you can. We're going to go through the case study right now and talk about also some of the changes that I have made, some of the things that I have removed as well, just to sort of simplify life for you too. Any questions before I continue with the course and the program structure and the capstone structure? Any questions? Anybody? Is everybody happy with the solo project? Almost 35% less work. Yep, you don't have to think about your group. You don't have to fight with your team members. You don't have to get nasty. You don't have to do any of that, right? Solo, you're responsible for your own project. You do things on your own. So hold on. I did say it's going to be a solo project. Does that mean you cannot help somebody else who's asking you a question? Of course you can. Totally. Totally you can. Of course you can. You can totally, like if Toby is asking me a question, for example, also if Toby is asking Joe a question, then Joe can answer. I really don't care. It doesn't matter to me because that's what happens out there in the workplace anyways. Like you'll see a lot of people sort of ask their colleagues, hey, what is this? What is that? So that's normal. You can ask people questions. It doesn't matter. I've seen people, what they do is that they build a Discord. They build their own sort of channel on Discord and communicate there. You can do it on Teams. I only get involved in Team if people were getting spicy. That's it. I don't say whatever you want to say as long as you don't use spicy language. I really don't care. You can communicate with your group here on Teams. We'll also use Teams to you can use Teams as well to share some documents with others as well. So if you want to share screenshots, you can use Teams for that too, right? So it's kind of helpful that way too. Okay. We will go through. How about we go through the case study? And so just so you guys know, I was making changes to the case study, like even 2 minutes before starting the stream. Like I was still in the middle of making changes. Even Brightspace is not very organized. So I made that change. I was thinking about that change last month, and I figured initially, I said everybody's doing the project exactly as is, and instead of 4 people, it'll be a solo. It was hard. When I looked at it, I'm like, I felt bad. I'm like, I think that's going to be a little bit hard. So I had to reduce the complexity in the project just to make it a little bit easier, or the requirements, I should say, in the project just to make it a little bit easier. Um, okay, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to go through Brightspace. We'll go through the business case, and I'll tell you what was the difference, just so you know as well what you're getting into, right? I'll tell you what was the difference. I just want to also clarify something. Brightspace is not yet updated. I'm going to work on it this week. So by next week, you'll see everything reflects on all the grades, and the structure, also the layout on Brightspace will reflect a solo implementation and instead of group implementation. Because the way it's laid out right now, it's all group implementation. And so I'm going to change just minor changes, nothing significant, just some minor changes here and there, just to make sure it reflects solo implementation. Trust me, solo implementation is a lot easier. I asked, by the way, so just so you guys know, last term, this is what it was just an idea. At the end of the course for capstone, I said to students, if you had to do capstone again by yourself, the whole thing by yourself, would you do it? This is not a joke. I am not exaggerating. Everybody put their hand up. I'm saying everything in capstone, do it alone. They're like, yeah, but yeah, everybody put their hand up because they like group work is intense. Like it's very intense because there is something called quality check. And so what that means is that, say, for example, say Joe and I in the same group, I have Josh with us as well, and we have Carson, just an example. So if just all of us are in the same group, then if Joe is done, then I'm supposed to go validate his work. So I'm supposed to do that. And then when I'm done, Carson is supposed to validate my work, like my portion, right? And then you're constantly making changes to the project schedule, because that's one of the first things I do when we do the review. Does everything in here match your project schedule? Because, and how do I know that? There is something called status reports. You have to submit status reports. So status reports tells me how far you are in your schedule. It tells me that. And so people were getting, so remember, they're not only doing implementation, they're also updating their documentation as they're doing implementation, like updating their plan. Make sure that, and I tell them, your plan must match your implementation. This is not a one-time submission. You have to go back and make changes to it. Okay, so I'll tell them, I give you a soft grade right now. Yep, there's a lot of planning, and in the planning, you have to make like a project design. You have to design using Visio. You have to do a project schedule, and then do a lot of documentation. So all of that must match your implementation. If it doesn't match, I don't even do the review. No, it must match. If it doesn't match, you failed. Like I said, the grading is very strict in Capstone. So staying away from the group takes that pressure off, completely takes that pressure off, because your schedule the way you see fit. Like you're in control of your own project, right? So it makes it more convenient for you to do the implementation. Okay, so let me do something. Let me share my screen, go to Brightspace. We're gonna go through the case study. How does that sound? Sounds good? Yeah, all good? Okay. Where is, where is, yeah, it's here. Share. Do you guys see my screen? Yeah. Yeah. All good. All right. All right, folks. Just a little bit of introduction for those that I have not taught before. I'm sure you can see it on Teams. My name is Sammy. I'm going to be your instructor for the capstone. I'm the only guy who teaches capstone for the SA. For those who were bumped from the evening course, because they wanted to do the capstone in the evening, they all of them got switched into the daytime capstone because the evening capstone, there's no SA capstone in the evening. It's just during the day. That's it. Okay, so it's just during the day. So that's why you guys were changed from some. I know there were 3 students that got changed from evening to daytime, so they got pushed they got pushed to the daytime schedule for capstone. So let's go through the course content. We'll show you the structure of Moodle. So on the have you guys used? Did you guys do the training on Brightspace or not yet? Have you guys done the Brightspace training? Anybody?
No,
No. Okay.
if I'm
No.
being honest.
Okay. It's actually quite easy to use Brightspace. It's very intuitive. So as soon as you what happens if you see this waffle sign on the top in the middle? This shows you the list of courses that you sign up for. Of course, I'm an instructor. I have access to a lot of courses. But let's go and find here. This is the capstone right here. So I'm going to click on that. It takes me to this course page. And of course, on this course page, you'll see the welcome message. You'll also see the calendar. It tells you all the upcoming submissions that you have to make. Don't worry about the submissions because we're going to make some minor changes over here and we're going to go through it together. So just so you know, it's not like an assignment that you do and then no, we talk about it together. We go through it together. So just don't worry about that too much. The most important thing here, when you get to Brightspace, on your left, click on content. And of course, it'll tell you start here. So this is where you look at the course schedule. That is the welcome message, the course outline, the syllabus, and all of that. Okay. If you look at Moodle, sorry, not Moodle, Brightspace and the way it is structured, so we have quite a few things here that are listed, and it shows you the project phases. It shows you the project documents, and it also shows you the peer review and the status reports, right? So this is the status report right here. This is the peer review. This is phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4 of the project. Okay. Of course, if you go through the project phases, for each phase, there is a specific set of submissions that you have to make. Okay. So if I click on phase 1, there are some templates that you have to fill out. We go through it together in the classroom, in the either online or in the classroom, like depending on our schedule and what does it require. We go through the templates. So this is what we do. We go through the templates, and then you guys have to work together in a group. But because we're not doing a group work, we're doing a solo project. I'm making some changes to those templates, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, so don't worry about it for your first day. You don't need to worry about the capstone. We're gonna get into the details of it starting next week. Okay, so I need this week to make some minor changes. Tomorrow we're gonna start figures. We're gonna have a little bit better idea of how we're gonna start. Okay, and I'll walk you through the process and everything. So don't worry about that. Okay, so again, so typically, so you see phase 1, there are some submissions, templates, and then submissions. Phase 2, again, you'll see templates and submissions. Phase 3, of course, you will see templates and submissions. And then phase 4, of course, you'll see template and submissions. Okay. For the peer review, what we used to do in a group work, we used to say, okay, after every phase, each student will have to rate other students who are within their group. They have to rate their team members. Okay, this is not, I don't take the rating to grade students. That's not what I do. I take the rating to see if somebody gave their colleague a rating of 111, and I see somebody else also gave them a rating of 111, and a third person also give this person a rating of 111. I was like, oh, there's something going on there. So normally I do get involved when I see like a bad rating given to a specific person, then I get involved, right? But if there is no bad rating, then if you guys are happy with the way you guys are doing things, then normally I'll just give you the full score and we move on, right? So again, I don't take the rating per se, and I rate students. Like if all three students give somebody a bad rating, I don't go and give that person a bad rating. That's not what I do. Okay, that's just the way to know if there is any dynamic issues within the group. That's it. But the fact that you fill it, you get a full score. So we had a status report and we had peer reviews. So status reports is something that we have to submit weekly, right? Just to know where is the group in their project, just to kind of know. Peer review, after every phase, each student will have to review their peers. That's what they had to do. So that was the structure sort of Capstone when it was group implementation. This is changing a little bit. So because there is no peer review, because this is a solo project, you're not gonna review your peers. So the grades then for the peer review is gonna get merged with the status report. So status reports, for example, says 6%, is gonna be 10%. The peer review is gonna go away. The project phases will pretty much remain the same. Specific things will be removed. So for example, we won't have something called team contract. So that's going away. Specific conditions in the project, I'll have to make changes to them. Example, it says there, because typically what we do is there is a group implementation, and then the group implementation, there are two parts. So typically you have to do the group implementation first with your peers within the group. Like you have to build your Active Directory first, you set up the router, build your Active Directory first, and then you start individual implementation, which we call them buckets. Okay, so if you do the group work but you don't do your buckets, you fail. If you and the other way around as well, like if you don't do the group work but you do your buckets, or even if you do your buckets but you fail either ways. So you have to do the group and the bucket to pass the course, right? It was a little bit rough. It was a little bit rough. And I pick on the group implementation hard, like I go hard on them. It was a little bit rough. And so, again, when we do this solo project, you don't have to worry about all this, right? You don't have to worry about all this. So let me give you an example. Maybe just will clarify things. Let's go through the case study just so you know what is really required of you to do, okay? So let's go on to project documents. Let's open up the case study. By the way, have you guys tried to open up Brightspace in the classroom? It is very slow. It's very, very slow. So if you guys are accessing from your home network, it's a lot faster because it's a bottleneck here for Nate. I'm going to download this document. I'm going to open it up, and then we're going to go through it together. And I'm going to tell you what is it that you need to do. So if you notice, this document looks a little bit different because I just uploaded it like a few minutes before starting the before joining the session, the online session. The case study is a little bit easier now. Like I said, it's about 30% less work. Let's go through it. Okay. So what's the idea here in this capstone? The idea is that you are a consultant. Okay, you are a consultant, and you are And if you see here, you're a consultant working for a company and you're expected to rebuild the company's Active Directory forest in addition to some of the implementation for some of the technologies that they use. So that's the objective over here. 32 gig is the requirement for you to be able to do this project. You need 32 gig. You can do 32 gig, by the way, on your laptop or home computer, whatever you want. Easy. Okay, because when we're doing a review, we're going to do it online anyways. Like the official review with me. Yeah, we'll have to do it online. If you want to do it online, the only requirements is that you have to turn on your camera, because I want to know if you're the one who did the implementation, and I want you to walk me through your configuration and everything, right? If you don't turn the camera, I'm going to assume someone else is driving. I'm going to ask you to come to the classroom. So just keep that in mind when we're doing our review. When we get there, we'll talk about the details on the requirements, okay? Okay, so let's go through the business case. It says you're responsible for implementing a client's organization Active Directory and server infrastructure. Feel free to make up the name of the client in here. So you're responsible for doing their implementation for their Active Directory. The company is in Edmonton and specializes in web hosting services. So feel free to come up with whatever name you want to come up with the name of the client. This is going to help you when you're building up their domains, right? So I've seen people call it Zoro hosting. I've seen people call it Sub-Zero hosting. I've seen people like they use like anime characters in the building, whatever it is. Honestly, it doesn't matter, right? So the name of the domain doesn't matter as much. So just make sure it's a clean name. Don't go crazy there. Picking up dirty names, okay? The company has 150 employees spread across the following departments. So this is a hosting company. This is what we know. They're located in Edmonton. They have 150 employees that are spread across sales, human resources, finance. Under finance, there are 2 subunits, like sub-departments, accounts payable or sub-functions, we call them, accounts payable and accounts receivable. They also have information technology department that's spread across the following functions: service support, network support, application support, and software development. Okay, hint, hint, if you think this is gonna what your Active Directory OU structure is gonna look like, yep, you are definitely heading in the right direction, for sure. And of course, we have another department called executive staff. Okay. Recently, your client's organization, so that's the hosting company, has acquired another company called, again, feel free to pick whatever name you want to pick here for the second company. So the hosting company bought another company, which is a software design company. After a lengthy discussion between the IT staff of both organizations, a decision was made that both organizations would retain their domain name. Let me zoom in a little bit, maybe to help you guys out. Okay. However, both organizations agreed that they would be part of the same AD forest. Okay. Here's what we know. There's a hosting company, there is a design company. The hosting company bought the design company. There was an acquisition there. Okay. Now, what do we know about this design company? The software design company has 150 employees spread across the following departments: sales, human resources, finance, design. Under design, they have web developers, database administrators, UI and content developers, and of course, the animation function. And of course, they have executive staff. The acquired company, which is the design company, the software design company, is in Calgary and specializes in web design and development. Okay. They also have a remote office in Red Deer for learning services. The decision was made to make the learning services site a child domain called learning dot, whatever domain name you pick now for the second software design company, right? That's the second domain. For the second domain. So somebody's saying, Simon, we don't really understand what's going on over here. I'm going to explain this here shortly. The learning child domain has two departments, teaching services and admin support. I'm going to explain this shortly. What does that look like really? Projects are often created with individuals from each department. The salesperson from the software design company includes a project advisory group from the hosting company and vice versa, which means whenever there is a business, the client is coming in, like a new customer coming in and wants to either looking for somebody to help them do the web design, right? So then the web design people get involved. They also offer the client hosting services. Like, do you want to have a space on our server so that you can host? So then they get in touch with the hosting services. The other way around as well, if somebody comes in, they want to buy a domain name and they want to buy a space on a server, they involve the design company just so to see if the client wants to have their websites designed for them, right? So it works both ways. Okay, as part of your project, you're expected to complete the following technology implementation requirements. Remember, this is simplified now. This is simplified, okay? Students are expected to produce a project that demonstrates the implementation of the following technologies for the main company and its recent acquisition. Let's open up now Microsoft. Let's open up Paint. That's the poor man's whiteboard because I am poor. So here's what we know so far. Why is it so big like that? Dude. So here's what we know so far. We have one company. So we have one domain. This is the hosting, right? So this is the hosting company. So this is the host. Oh, geez, this is so small. So we know we have the hosting company. So that's the hosting company. Call them, what should we call them? What do you guys want to call it? What do you guys want to call it?
Spider-Man Web Services.
Ouch. Batman hosting.
What?
Yeah. You have a problem with Batman? You're not passing this course, I'll tell you. So batmanhosting.com. Okay, so this is the first company. So this is what we know so far. They have 150 employees, 150 employees. Can you guys hear me? Hello? Yeah, I got muted. I don't know how. Okay, anyway, so this is your, so we have 150 employees. Here's what we have here. So looks like what these guys want, there is a domain here. Why is this so? Where did that go? There it is. Why is it like that? Oh, there it is. Okay, so we have, dude. Okay, I give up. So we have a domain over here. So that is your hosting company. We also have a design company. That's the software design company. That's the second domain. And what the business case says under the second domain, there is learning services. So we have a line going right here. And that is the learning services. So let's write that down. This is the design company. What should we call it? Spider-Man? Spider-Man Designs. Spider-Man Designs.com. Somebody says somebody wanted Spider-Man. Okay, let's do Spider-Man.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you have a problem with Bruce Wayne, you have a problem with me too. So remember that. You remember. Okay, so this one then is called learning. So what is this called then? If this is a child domain, it's going to called learning dot Spider-Man. Is this a namespace? we're sharing the namespace. Spider-Man Designs.com, right? So that's going to be the child domain. Oh my God, what is going on with this thing? So that's going to be the child domain. Okay, and what they want, they said, we want both of them to be in the same AD forest. So this is your entire forest right here. So that is your entire forest. Okay, that's your entire forest. Cool. So this is maybe I need to take that course. So maybe I need to take that course. So here's what we know so far. And those guys have 150 employees. They have 150 employees. Okay. You have to build that for them, is essentially what the project is asking you to do. Okay. But remember, there are some things that you have to do. There are some specific customizations that you have to do. In addition to picking up the domain name, right? Because you have to pick up the domain name. You also have to build their Active Directory. You have to build the Active Directory forest. And then, of course, build. So how many trees do we have now in this forest? We have 2 trees, right? So this is 1 tree, right? This one over here is 1 tree. And this one is the second tree, right? So 2 trees in the same forest. Okay, it's 2 trees in the same forest. All right, so back to the business case. So here's what we need to do. It says here, students are expected to produce a project that demonstrates the implementation of the following technologies for the main company and its recent acquisition. A routable network between each subnet. You may wish to build your router using Windows LAN routing services or pfSense. It's up to you. Windows LAN routing services is a lot easier, but people may prefer pfSense if they have RAM problems. So you may have RAM problems, like you don't have a lot of RAM on your computer, especially if you decided to do other things, which I'm going to talk about. In this case, you may choose to do things on pfSense. Okay, the router must connect all sites to the internet using NAT. So hints were not there before. I introduced hints just to help you guys out, because students were struggling with a lot of things. You need to disable IPv6 on all your VMs and the router before you begin your configuration. Okay, so it says here, the router must connect all sites to the internet using NAT. Now, here's what we know so far. If you go back here, we know that those guys are located in Edmonton, right? And we know that those guys are located in Calgary. And we know that those guys are located in Red Deer. So this is what we know so far. What does that tell you? It tells you all those 3 domains. So 3 domains in total, 2 trees. One of the domain has a child domain in 1 tree, the one on the right. And it tells you, but they are physically in a different site, which means they're on a different subnet. That's what it's trying to tell you. They're on a different subnet. Okay. So I suggest you disable IPv6. If you don't do this up front, you're going to struggle later on big time. You're going to struggle. There's going to be a lot of issues. Okay, you must use Windows Server 2019 installation. Somebody's going to say, can we use 2022? Go for it. But 2019 is the bare minimum that you have to do. Okay, you must create an Active Directory forest for the described business case. Hint, 2 domain trees in the same forest. The first domain tree is a single domain, which is what we did in the drawing. And the second domain tree is a parent and a child. So in total, we have 1 domain per site because there are 3 sites, Edmonton, Calgary, and Red Deer, right? So we have 1 per site, 1 domain controller, 1 domain per site, which will end up being 1 domain controller per site because you don't have a lot of RAM. Best practices tells us you need to have 2 domain controllers in case one of them fails. But because you don't have a lot of RAM, you'll end up using only 1. Okay, each domain will be in a separate site with different subnets. An instructor will provide a list of subnets for each student. You guys will not have the same subnet. You guys will have different subnets. Okay, you'll have different subnets. This is also to make sure that somebody does not build a project and then goes and gives it to somebody else, right? Takes their project and give it to somebody else saying, yeah, they also did the project, look at that. So students will have different subnets. I'm going to tell you what your subnets are. They all look different, they're not the same. Okay, it says here, replication must be configured for all domain controllers in the forest with no replication issues. You may wish to consider the following. DNS address in the TCP/IP properties of DCs, of your domain controllers. DNS zones, site links in Active Directory sites and services. So those are hints. Okay, I'm telling you what to look for in case you have issues. Somebody's asking me, can I use GPT? Oh, absolutely. Go for it. I encourage you to use ChatGPT. Okay. GPOs, what do we need to do with GPOs? It says you need to implement group policy object, a password policy for all domains in the forest using GPO settings. The password must follow best practices, standards, server support staff. Again, if you go up, those guys over here, they're going to be a sub OU, hint, hint. Server support staff should be forced to have more complex passwords using PSOs. So what do we know so far? You need to implement a domain policy in your GPO that applies to everybody in the domain, which means where do you implement it? On the domain level, not on the OU level, on the domain level. Okay. However, you'll have one of the sub OUs, not even an OU, is going to be a sub OU. We'll have a PSO on that group. There'll be a group in there. You're going to have PSOs on that group. Okay. And it says over here, a corporate user policy should be applied to all users that disables advanced page and security page of Internet Explorer. IT staff should be exempted from this policy. Okay, so this is group policy configuration now. Okay, managers in both organizations must have a screensaver with a login prompt after 1 minute of idle time. And I'm going to test this. So be prepared. And I'm going to show you how I'm going to test all of this, just so you know how I'm going to look at things. Okay. One group of users, depending on your structure, could be a group like sales staff, should not be allowed in control panel. A set of policies specifically for Chrome browser. You have the option to decide what specific policies you want to implement. If you want to Google right now, what are some of the policies for Google Chrome? GPO policies for Google Chrome. Just Google that. There are like 5 policies, if I recall. Pick any one of them to implement. Okay, pick any one of them to implement. A client VM with software being blocked by AppLocker, you can decide which software to block. I've seen students, they block the calculator. Some people block the Paint, Microsoft Paint. Whatever it is that you want to block, you decide. I'm easy. Okay. Hint, test above GPO enforcement on Windows 10 client joined to the domain before replicating your configuration to other domains. What does that tell you? You have 3 domains. As soon as you do the GPO on one of the domains, you have to go and do the same across the other 2 domains. But don't go ahead and just do that. Join a Windows 10 client to the domain, test all those policies, make sure they work, then go ahead and replicate it across other domains, the other 2 domains. Okay. It says here the IT support should have a roaming profile with a disk quotas implemented on the drive, storing profiles to ensure the limited size. So we need disk quotas implemented on a group called IT support. Okay. Okay. So there's a little bit of crumbs I'm throwing over there for you. So what does that tell you really? It tells you that, okay, I have 150 employees in the first company. That's the hosting company. The design company has 150 employees. What about the learning company? So So that's a question. Again, I left it blank because I know people will start asking me later. So that's okay, because that tells me where you are. That tells me where you're at in your project, right? So just so you know, the learning company is 20 employees. Okay, so just 20. Now it tells you over here, you hear the word groups, even though I don't mention it in my business case, because that is best practice. You should know that. So what you do then, when you create your 150 employees that are scattered across all those OUs and sub-OUs, you need to create groups as well, because those groups, you're going to use them later on to give permissions. We're going to get to the permissions now shortly. So again, I know I don't tell you to do that, but you need to do that as best practice. You should know how to do that. Okay, that's best practice, by the way. Okay, DFS, a working example of read and modify NTFS permission for shares on a namespace which includes access from non-administrative users from the same and other AD trees in the same forest. So what does that tell you? You may choose a single DFS namespace for each of those domains. What am I trying to say here? I'm saying that shared folders must be accessible to everybody in the domain. So people on the child domain, they can access the parent shared folder domain. For the parent, people on the parent domain of the second tree, they can access shared folder from the first tree, the domain on the first tree. So they can access each other's shared folders. Where are those shared folders located? They're on the DFS. Okay, so just keep that in mind. There are some hints for you how to do things properly when you're giving permissions. And it tells you over here, users are granted full control of the share permission, but are restricted by the NTFS permission. You know, when you go to the share of the folder, go to the properties, click on the share, give everybody full control. You restrict them in the NTFS. Remember, when you're coming in from the network, the most restrictive will apply. The most restrictive will apply, right? So which is the NTFS then in this case. You may want to use universal group to make this work. Remember, we are accessing shared folders from one domain on another domain. You're accessing a shared folder on another domain. What do you need to use? You need to use universal groups, because you cannot see my domains. Like you can see the groups in my domain. You'll have to use universal groups to start adding users in universal groups, and then you add universal groups into local administrative group, and then from the local administrative group, you can give them permissions. Okay, you may choose to use a single DFS namespace for each domain with subfolders that match the OU setup for each domain in the forest. What am I saying here? I'm saying your folder structure in DFS. So when you're building a namespace, you may choose to use a single namespace for each of those domains. But inside each of those namespaces, there is a folder structure. What is that folder structure is going to look like? It should match your OU structure, right? It should match your OU structure. So for example, if you go back to the main domain, the primary domain, which is the first one, your folder structure must have a folder for sales, human resources, finance. Under finance, you'll have subfolders, which means you need to create users and groups and give them the right permissions across based on what they have access to. Okay. Cool. Makes sense? All right. We're still going. You also need an enterprise certificate server that provides auto-enrollment certificates to all users and client workstations. In this case, that's the Windows 10 that you joined to the domain, right? In addition, certificates must be configured for all the application server section of the project. That's the last page of this document. So if you look at the last page of this document, if you look at we'll come back to the other parts. If you look at the last page of this document, you have the option. So when you're implementing the server certificates, and I believe you guys are doing certificates right now. When you're doing the implementation for the server certificates, not only on user and computer enrollment, you also have to do it in one of those applications. So you have to pick one of those applications. Now, you can pick to choose Microsoft Exchange, which is for your emails. You can choose SharePoint. You can choose WDS. You can choose to do Linux. You can choose to do Linux. Or you may choose to do something else. Remember, if you're using Microsoft Exchange, SharePoint, or WDS, you have to upgrade your RAM to 64 gig because they're quite heavy. They'll use a lot of RAM. You can do this again on your home computer or your laptop, whatever. Okay. If you do things on Linux, so if you do the implementation on Linux, like if you pick Linux as an option, right, you don't have to upgrade to 64 because 32 will be just fine. Okay. So you also finally, so you have to do the certificate for user and computer enrollment, and one of the things that are mentioned in that table below. I'm going to talk about the table below here shortly as well. It says a minimum AD structure must include the following. By the end of the project, our user is expected to have their data completed based on your description of the organization and the organization you are supporting. So which means users must have the company name, address, city, state, country, telephone number, email, manager, department. So you don't just create users. Nobody cares about you right now. Anyway. Okay, so when you Siri is jumping in, I don't know why. So when you make the configuration for users in an Active Directory, like when you create the users in Active Directory, which by the way, you have to create them using PowerShell, you don't create them manually. You have to include all those information, department, manager, their email address, their phone. If you have to fill that information as well. So what's the best thing to do? And it says over here, this must be populated from CSV using a PowerShell script. So what am I saying? I'm saying that when you create users using PowerShell, so you have to create users using PowerShell, the PowerShell script must refer to an Excel sheet, like a CSV file, must refer to an Excel sheet. In that Excel sheet, you'll have the list of 150 users and their details filled out. Okay. If you don't want to do this, this is what I'm saying, ask ChatGPT to do it for you. Okay. Hey, ChatGPT, can you give me the scripts of 150 users? Sorry, give me the a list of 150 users that I can add into an Excel sheet. ChatGPT will create it for you. So that's what students have done in the last term. They created all those users using they created the list using ChatGPT. And also the script came from ChatGPT, I think. Careful with ChatGPT, don't just take and run, like be very careful. Check the script that that gets shown in ChatGPT. So because you have to do it using PowerShell. Make sure you test the script first before you run it on your project. Okay. When you give your, let's move on. When you give your access to the domain resources such as DFS shares, you're expected to use security groups. Groups should also provide for all units roles within the company structure. You must follow Microsoft rules, best practices for the setup and use of security groups. Meaning when you're setting up the security groups in your DFS, right? When you're setting up the security groups in the DFS, make sure for each of those OUs and sub-OUs, there is a group. Okay, there's a group for the purpose of permissions. Make sure they have a group. And then you give them access based on their role. Like if somebody's in account payable, he's part of the group of account payable group, and account payable group has access to that subfolder. Okay. All right. You must pick one of the technologies in the application server section, see below. So here's on top of what you read up there, there is also, you have to pick one of those for implementation. Whatever you feel comfortable doing, I'm not going to pressure you. You pick any one of them. Okay, so the first one is Exchange. I'm letting you know right now, it's hard. It's not easy. SharePoint is a lot easier than Exchange. WDS is hard, is not easy. But whatever you feel comfortable, I'm not pressuring you. So whatever you feel comfortable, you go ahead and do it. I don't care. but you need to pick one of those. The easiest one is Linux application. That's the easiest one to do. Because what you have to do here is that Linux integration with Active Directory and Apache site incorporated with a database. The website must host an employee lookup application. You may wish to take your PHP code from the MIT 1531 course and tune it to build the employee lookup application. Very easy. This is very easy. Very easy to implement. This is what I have seen. A lot of students pick either this or this. They pick one of those two. Okay, you don't want to do any one of those. If you don't want to do any one of those, then I'm telling you, okay, pick any open source technology, something like help desk application. You want to do Nessus for security assessment. You want to do any server-based product, like server-based technology that you want to install. You can do that, but you must have an approval from me. And the approval must come in writing. If the approval doesn't come in writing, I'm going to consider this something that is not part of your project. I must give you in writing, either in an email or in Teams. It must come to me and come from me in writing. So the easiest one, like I said, is Linux. If I were you, this is what I'm going to go for. But if you're not comfortable with Linux, you want to do something else, remember that you may need to upgrade. The other one that I've seen people do is this one here, help desk application. I think it's called OS Tickets. If I remember correctly, it's called OS Tickets. It's open source, it's free, but you have to deploy it on Linux. Okay, any questions regarding the business case? Anybody? That is correct, yes. But remember, so not all in one script. You'll have 3 scripts. One for the domain. So you'll have a script for here. A CSV for this. Here. CSV here, script here, a separate script here, and then a separate script here. So 3 scripts in total, 3 CSV files. Again, to make it easier on you. If you want to do it in one file, go for it. But 3 files is a lot easier. Yep. So somebody says, so Sammy, how many servers are we going to have to build? Let's count them. Let's count that. What do we have so far here? We have, let me just remove this. So I have 1 domain controller here. 1 domain controller here. 1 domain controller here. I'm going to have a router, right? I'm going to have a router. 1 router connects to this site. 1 router connects to this site. 1 router connects to this site. And then another interface here on the router that goes on the internet. So this is going to be the internet over here. Does that make sense? So how many interfaces you need on your router? 4 interfaces. This is your internet. Okay. So how many servers now so far? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 servers. Let's keep counting. Go back to the document. Router, we got the servers, yeah, the domain controllers, yes, GPOs, that's all part of AD. This is again all part of configuration, DFS, and certificate servers. So certificate server, you have the option to use a you can use an offline CA with a sub, or you can just use the main CA. You don't have to use an offline, you don't have to use a sub CA. You don't need to. It's up to you. So that is your 5th server right there. So if each one of them is 4 gig, how many gig do we have in total now? How many? Because you're going to set up each one of them as 4 gig. But initially, what you're going to do, you're going to set it up as 8 gig, and then you're going to scale it down after you finish. You scale it down to 4 gig just so you can continue your configuration with other. So that's 20 gig right there. That's 20 gig right there. Now, if you do all of that, and you also do your Linux, Linux will probably take you 2 gig. Assuming it's 4 gig, how many gigs do we have in total now? 24, right? So how many gigs left for you on your computer? You have 8 gigs left for your computer, right? Yep, 8 left for your computer. There we go. So how many relay servers in total? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 servers only. Only 6 servers. Do you know in a group project how many servers they have to do? They have to do 16 servers, I think. They have to do 16. And we have 3 sites in here, right? We have 3 sites. In a group project, it was 4 sites. It was 4 sites in total. There was actually a lot of requirements here that I removed. A lot of things were actually mandatory, like WDS was mandatory, SharePoint was mandatory, Linux was also mandatory, and then they had to choose between Exchange and something else I can't remember. Oh, OS Helpdesk was also mandatory. Yep. So there's a lot of things that was like mandatory. Yep. Correct. You'll also need a client VM. That's true. Right there. I forgot about that. You'll need a client VM. So 6 servers in total and 1 client VM. The client VM, like I said, like you can scale it down as soon as just for you to finish the installation and then scale it down to like 4 gig or 2 gig or whatever it is. At the end of this project, your computer will be very slow. This is normal. So keep that in mind. That is normal. I already know that. This is whether when we do it in a group project or we do this, of course, and even in a group project, it was super slow. That's why the we do the review. It takes about 2 hours to do the review. But of course, in your case, because this is a solo project, probably each person will just be an hour. It won't be long, maybe even less. Okay, how feasible it is to do the application server, the first 3, without going past 32? Impossible. Impossible. No way. You won't be able to. Oh, one of the first 3. Again, impossible. You won't be able to. Um, Okay, if you had to pick, you don't want to do SharePoint, you don't want to do Linux. If you had to pick, the easiest one is SharePoint. That's very, very easy. You can scale it 4 gig. I have not tried. I know when I remained at 8 gig, it was working. You can probably scale it down to 4 gig after you finish the installation, the configuration, you test everything, it's all good. You can scale it down to 4 gig just so you can continue your work with other things. So honestly, Joe, try it. Try it. Give honestly, like if you wanna give it a shot, do it. Yeah. See if it works for you. And if you can't, well then whatever. You can just delete the server and then build your Linux and do that, right? So okay. Like I said, Brightspace is not cleaned up yet, so I need to clean up Brightspace, like make some minor changes in Brightspace to make sure it matches the solo project and also the grading structure and everything, right? How are you all feeling about this project? It's actually not that hard, right? It's very easy.
Yeah, it feels a lot easier than what I was told when I was talking to Callan earlier this summer.
Yeah, it's a lot easier for sure. Like you in the group, oh, it's rough.
Yeah, he was
So,
like, if you're gonna do a group, you should have a watertight thing, and even if you do, they are most likely not gonna get removed.
yep. So he's okay. Do you guys want to see their buckets and groups? I'll show you. I'll show you their buckets and groups. Hold on. This one here. Yep, that's their bucket right there. Let me download this. Download. There was tons and tons of rules when it came to here's their buckets right here. Look at this. That was their bucket right there. So somebody had to do WDS with PowerShell, somebody had to do the open source with Linux and DFS, SharePoint or Exchange and AD cert. Somebody had to do GPOs with WSUS, Windows Admin Center. There was something else also missing in here I did not include, and that is the OS ticket. So this person is also doing OS tickets here. Yeah. So it looked a little bit different for them, but there's their size of the project. Like I said, they hit 16 servers almost. I've seen other groups have done 14 servers and 16 servers. I have not seen anything less than 14 servers. Yeah, WSCS is not included for us. No. By the way, you may choose to do WSCS and as one of the options. I'm glad you brought this up. We can add it as one of the options, WSCS, if you prefer to do WSCS. It's quite painful, WSCS. It's not easy. Yep. So, yeah, your project is way easier. Is way easier. 6 VMs instead of 14, or 16. I'll take that any day. Without dealing with groups and group drama and all of that. Oh yeah. I'll take that any day. Okay. So I'm gonna make some changes tonight on Brightspace, like some minor changes. Tomorrow we'll come and look at some of the submission requirements. And then look at also our project calendar and say when do we start what, when is it due, and how much time do you have for your planning, how much time do you have for your implementation, how much time do you have for your for the review with me. So all of that we'll discuss it in the next class. You should see it tomorrow. Before we start our class tomorrow, you should see the schedule up. I'll put it up. So I'll work on it today and tonight as well, and then tomorrow you'll see the updated schedule. So tomorrow we'll go through the schedule as well. Again, I apologize. This is a little bit, it's not very organized, I should say, Brightspace, but this is also for your own benefit so that we are doing a solo implementation. Yeah. Yes, it is. This business case is going to take the whole semester. Yep. Because you'll have to do some, so you'll have to do a project scope. You'll have to do project design. You'll have to do project schedule. So project scope, project design, project schedule, project risk. And then you start your implementation. Then at the end, you fill out the lessons learned. So I'll have to update the templates as well, right? Can I show you my drawings once again? We'll look at the actual drawing. I'll give you guys a sample, by the way. Even for the design, there are two designs that you have to do. One is Active Directory logical design, and one is the physical design. If you want to take a picture, where is my, there. Go up a little bit. There you go. So the first 3 weeks, is planning. 3 weeks? The first 3 weeks is planning. 3 weeks? Yeah. 3 weeks. Geez, 3 weeks or 4 weeks? I'll have to go back and change the schedule. But the first 3 weeks or 4 weeks, they're planning because it's not group project anymore, right? So in the group project, it's 4 weeks because it's a solo project, it might probably end up being 3 weeks, which means you'll have a lot of time for implementation. So reason why I give you guys a lot of time, because I know you're doing other courses at the same time. I know some of you are doing 5 courses, some are doing 6 courses, right? And so some also like signed up for they're already employed, right? And so the only way for them to do this is doing it at night. Right, and so that's why you have a lot of time just so you can go through the implementation. Would you take the entire time? Most likely, yes. So what I would recommend, chip at it a little bit every day. Just do a little bit every day. Don't leave it all to the last minute. It's going to get super hard. You will struggle a little bit when it comes to replication as well. So keep those things in mind. We'll struggle a little bit when it comes to group policy implementation. Some of the policies will not work, so you have to figure out what's going on. So keep that in mind, because when I start testing you at the end for you to show me your configuration, there'll be some requirements that I will go through in the class as well to, like, how do we do the demonstration? How am I going to grade you exactly? What am I going to look for? Just so you're also prepared when you're doing the review, you know where to go, you know how to navigate. There's a documentation that you have to do for your project as well. So this is the planning. So the planning, there is some documentation there that you have to prepare. You do your implementation. When you do your implementation, you have to capture screenshots to show me what you did, right? So there is documentation on the implementation as well. So that's something we're going to talk about tomorrow. We'll talk about the project structure, how the grades are structured and everything, and we'll talk about the calendar as well. And then we start next week. Actually, this is a good question. Will you still record classes? Because we have students who are not, who won't be able to attend on in person on Monday, I'm going to have a webcam with me. And we'll probably hit the record button just to accommodate those who cannot attend, show up in class on Monday. During implementation, so here's what I suggest you do. During implementation, it's best that you be available on Monday in the classroom. This is during the planning. During the implementation, you can be at home. It doesn't matter, right? I'll be in the classroom if you need anything. If something is not clear about your project, then I can answer that. But you can do it from home, really. There is no... there's no, I would say, something in the project that says, oh, you must be in the classroom. It doesn't matter. You can do it from home too, so it won't matter. So the first few weeks for the planning, I suggest you try and show up for Monday. Again, for those who can't, that's okay. I'm gonna have my webcam and I'm gonna record anyways, just so those who cannot attend on Monday. So we have a few students here that already signed their employment, had an employment opportunity and signed the contract already, and they started working. So I don't want them to lose their employment opportunity just for the sake of attending on Monday. I'll just record on Monday. I'll bring my webcam with me and I'll record in the classroom. So I'm easy that way. So Capstone is a little bit different. Don't take Capstone as like the benchmark for other courses. Other courses, they run differently. I told you Capstone is very different. Very, very different the way we do Capstone. So I had students, I had a group with me. They go meet up in Bytes. They don't want to be in the classroom. They don't want they don't like the vibe or the energy or whatever. They want to sit in Bytes and do the implement. This is back in last time when we were doing group implementation. So we had groups that would like meet up in Bytes and do the implementation. Kind of cool. I'm easy, like you don't have to. This is adult education. We're not high school here. All right. I think we'll take it easy for today. This is our first session. Tomorrow we'll learn a little bit more about the grading structure also and the course calendar. And then, of course, it'll be the weekend. And then the week starting Monday, we're going to begin working on our deliverables right away. Okay. So we'll talk about that tomorrow as well. We'll talk about the structure for the grading structure, the course calendar, and the deliverables as well that we'll have to make. Okay. Any questions for today? Anybody? Anybody questions? Going once, going twice. Do you think it's feasible to do most of the work inside the class hours? Yeah. Okay. So here's what happens. This is very common. I get this quite a lot. When we used to do, so I had two different things going on. So just to answer that question from Mason, I had a group that do not show up during class time because they're just busy with other courses, doing assignments for other courses. That's fine. They meet up later during the week to work on the project. This is back when we were doing group projects. That's fine. Like I said, I'm easy. It doesn't matter as long as you can get it done. Do you want to work this during the allocated class time that you have based on your schedule? Is it feasible for you to complete it within that time? Yes, it is. For the solo project, yes, it is. But you have to dedicate your time to like, whether you do it in the classroom or you do it from home, that doesn't matter. Whatever you get less distraction, I should say. Thursdays and Fridays are online. Only Mondays are in person. But again, for the ones that are in person, we're going to record anyways. So if you don't want to be here, then watch the recording or join us live if you want. Remember, it's only 6 servers. You won't be doing much, but it's quite a lot of configuration that you have to go through, right? Have I seen a group that finished it in 4 weeks? 4 weeks, hey? 4 weeks. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. All those 4 students, they're actually all system administrators. They all work as system administrators. They finished the whole project in 4 weeks. I was surprised. When you say recording, does that mean you'll have Teams meeting during the Monday? Yes. So Monday I'll have Teams, so I'll be in the classroom. I'll have a camera like on top of my monitor. I'm gonna start Teams so people can join me live. For those who cannot come in person, they can join live. You'll also see students in the classroom. So I'll be talking to the students and also talking to people on the camera at the same time. So if you want to be here on Monday in person, cool. If you want to be online, then that's fine too. Whichever one you prefer, honestly. Whatever is easy for you. Questions, anybody, before we end the session for today? Take it easy, relax. Tomorrow we'll have a little bit more information as well. Remember, because I just made this change recently. So I'm trying to sort of go through Brightspace and simplify things a little bit. If you guys don't have any questions, then enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys tomorrow online again.